Hello, hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mawusi Ragland, known as WuRag, and I have with us a special guest today. Her name is Susan Parso, and she's going to share with us how she overcame domestic violence. She is definitely a survivor. Let's welcome Susan. How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
So, how are you feeling today?
Good. A little bit nervous, really, but
No,
but
yes,
I'm really good today.
I know it's okay. It is a little bit of nerves going on. Go ahead and take a deep breath in
Yeah.
and take a deep breath out. Yes. So, how was it like for you growing up, Susan? What was your childhood like?
Well, my parents separated when I was 4 and they fought a lot. And I was just telling my therapist, the only memory I have of my parents together is of them fighting, and I don't remember anything else.
Wow.
And then they briefly got back together when I was 7, and that lasted a few months, and then my dad left again. My mom has mental illness, or she had mental illness, and so it was really I didn't have the best childhood. It could have been worse, but it wasn't wonderful.
What was it like? Was it lonely? Was it a lot of
um
arguing? Did you
yeah
have
my
siblings?
yeah my mom, so my dad left when I was 4, and then he would come on the weekends and visit us, and that was like the little bit of normalcy. And I spent summers with my grandparents in Ohio. I would spend like 6, 7, 8 weeks with them, and that was the only time of my life kid.
You're going in and out. Repeat that one more time.
So when I spent summers with my grandparents, it was the only time that I was able to feel like a normal kid.
Wow.
Yeah. So my mom, she had depression and um, well, they called it schizophrenic episodes.
Yes.
And she had lots of anxiety. And now that I'm an adult and have a kid, I can say, oh, now I kind of understand my mom a little bit better. But it was really hard for her to deal with everyday stress, and she would take it out on my sister and me. So she used to hit us a lot and scream at us, and really we didn't know why. And so then when I was 13, my sister and I both moved in with my dad. And then life got a little like, oh, well, a lot better after that.
And how old were you at that time when you moved in with dad?
I was 13.
Okay, so when you were growing up with mom, was it scary for you?
I thought it was normal, really. I mean, I hated it when I was in the 8th grade or 7th grade. Oh, middle school was terrible. But I remember like I was doing dishes and I like held a knife up to my wrist. I'm like, I'm gonna just kill myself. And that's not normal for like a 12-year-old to feel that way. So, but I thought that was just what life was like. I didn't really know, because my best friend, her mom used to smack her around and yell at her too. So I just kind of thought that's what life was like.
Oh, wow.
Except when I knew my grandparents didn't do that, but I didn't really get it that life could be different.
Well, yeah, a lot I hear that it becomes normal in
Yeah.
type of environments, and it's a way of survival, and I think that's why a lot of the things, the memories that you have had, you block them out.
Mm-hmm.
You were trying to survive through that. So
Yeah, that's what I learned.
you
That
learned
you
that? Yeah.
that people who've gone through trauma in childhood like can't remember their childhood, and I thought it was just me, and I learned that that's like a common thing. I recently learned that, so I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, and it's because I work with students. I'm an educator, so I come across a lot of different schizophrenic, bipolar, ADHD, a lot of different kids with different backgrounds, and so I have taught them how to adapt and how to maintain and overcome, and don't let the labels affect you. So a lot of times, yes,
Awesome.
so what you're going through is you're from a background that have mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
so it affected you, and so you just have to be on survival mode. And it's something that I wasn't taught, but it's for me, it's common sense because I guess because I'm in that field,
Mm-hmm.
I work with those type of people the way that your mother was, and
Mm-hmm.
it does become it's stressful. So how did that affect your adulthood?
Well, after I moved in with my dad, I kind of didn't think about childhood anymore. And I would still go visit my mom sometimes, and my dad never talked bad about her,
Yep.
which is pretty
That's great.
amazing.
Yes.
He tried really hard to say, well, it's how she is. She's has mental illness. She still loves you.
Yes.
And so I just kind of blocked everything out, and I was so like happy, I guess, living with my dad, that I didn't really, I just kind of moved on and didn't think about it anymore. But now as an adult and I look back and I see all the patterns, I was like, oh, it sure has affected me and still does.
Right. And that's what happens is that those when you're growing up in those environments, it does carry on. You see a pattern later on in life looking back,
Hmm.
right? So, what would you like to share with the audience today? What is your message today for the audience, Susan?
Well, just even though I've been through all these things and I had a very abusive marriage, that there's still hope that you can heal and move on and thrive. And like my life is like so different now, 1 year later after leaving my husband, and that there's still hope, and not to like think that you have to live like that forever, because you don't.
Right. What was your experience like in a domestic violent marriage?
Well, after I didn't live with my mom anymore, I was like, I'll never let anyone ever hit me again. And I had some friends that when I was young that had abusive boyfriends. I'm like, you need to get away from him. How could you? And I'm like, I will never let that happen to me. And then fast forward, here I am at 40 years old, and I end up in a very violent, abusive marriage. And like, I don't even know how it happened or how I let it go on for so many years. We were together about 7 years, but he was violent for the last four of them. And it's just shocking to me, like, how did I, in my 40s, end up in this situation after I, you know, promised and vowed that would never happen to me because I went through it enough as a child. And I remember telling my husband, because they're always sorry afterwards, like, you make me feel like a little girl, like I'm living with my mother again, and I can't take it anymore.
So, how did you get involved in that relationship? How did you get involved? And when did it start happening? When did you start noticing the signs and the triggers?
I'm a school teacher, which
Hey.
is even more shocking because I do work with kids, and I'm trained to see. I was telling the school counselor, I'm trained to see this stuff, and how did I let it go on so long in my own life? But I was teaching school in Colombia in South America, and we met down there. He's Colombian, and we fell in love, and we had so much fun. We lived together for 2 years, and then we had a baby, and we came back to the US. And then that's when everything started going crazy. I don't know if it was stress and all his demons came out, or, culture shock. I don't know what happened, but something clicked in him. And it started about 6 months or so after he was in the US.
Wow. So, how long were you with him before the domestic violence started? Because,
About 3 years.
wow, 3
Yeah.
years.
Hmm.
And what was that experience like the first time that it happened?
The first time, he yelled at me a few times in the few months before he hit me, and I was like, "What is wrong? What's going on?" It's culture shock. I got to get him help. But then it was
You
in
said that was culture
September.
shock. I got to get him help.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because he's like screaming at me, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And then September, which it was our anniversary of when we met. That's the first time he hit me. And he didn't hit me. He like beat me up, and I had to call 911. And I ran into the street, and he like ripped my pajamas off of me and told me that if I was going to embarrass myself, I'd have to do it naked. And he ripped my pajamas off. And I was like, what? I was like shell shocked. I didn't understand what was happening because he'd never acted like that before. And I waved down a car to call. Yeah, he smashed my cell phone. I waved down a car in the middle of the street. Yeah, it was really terrible. And guess what? I
Right.
forgave him.
Well, and I'll tell you that what I've learned, Susan, is that a lot of people that are abusive, they manipulate you. They do things to make it seem like, oh, it was your fault. I love you. If this didn't happen, if you didn't make me do that, it would have never happened. They try
Mhm.
really hard to keep you isolated and in their arms. So don't
Mhm.
feel bad because of the experience. It's you were dealing with a monster. This is something that he was just like waiting to do, you know?
That's how it felt, yeah.
Right. Like a total
'Cause
monster. What happened? Wait, we moved way here. We met here in Colombia. We ended up in America. I had a baby and everything with you. And then you waited until I'm comfortable, settled with you, in love with you,
3 years, yeah.
and then you drop the bomb on me, like the beat down, okay? To where
Mhm.
you're in the street running for your life. It
Yeah.
it had to have been the most scariest situation in life, and you didn't feel safe after that.
No.
But did you
I could
what happened?
I forgave him. He got arrested, and I'm like, oh, I'll want to drop the charges. He has some issues. He's culture shock. He witnessed the murder of both of his parents. He has, oh yeah, so he has his own issues. He needs help. I mean, he has to go to counseling and get help, and then he'll go back to the way he was. And of course, everyone probably laughed at me because they know the pattern. But I wanted to help this man that I loved, father of my
Yes,
child.
yes.
And so he stayed out of the house for like 6 months, and went to counseling. And then he came home, and then things were okay for a little while, but not for very long. And the counseling didn't help at all.
So
I
he
don't think.
stayed gone away from home for 6 months to get help.
Yeah, he lived with my sister and um, her neighbor.
And so what was that experience like?
Oh, he had an affair with the neighbor, but I didn't know about it till like 2 years later. And
What?
yeah, she's married with 3 kids, and she was supposedly my friend. She actually signed my marriage certificate. I can tell you so much, but that's probably another podcast.
That's a whole different show. But Susan, but these stories are real. These stories need to be told. This is what happened. So he comes back after supposed to be getting canceled so that you and he can have a wonderful marriage and work through all the hard times
Yeah,
and
they're still having an affair, but he's off in New York now because he ended up homeless when I kicked him out last year. So now he has family in New York, so he's there now. But he's still been carrying on the affair all this time, and she's married with 3 kids, and her husband knows and doesn't care. I guess I don't know. It's a crazy story.
wow. Yes, it does. I mean, it's a very crazy story, Susan. So did you so your friends and family knew what was going on?
My I'm my sister knew. Yeah, my sister
For
knew
you.
that he hit me, and it was her best friend he was having an affair with. And
Knew the whole
she
time?
finally,
Did she know the whole time, Susan?
well, she'll go back for sometimes she'll say she knew, and sometimes she'll say she didn't know, or she had suspicions, but I don't really know,
Was
to
he a
be
jealous
honest.
partner?
Oh yeah, he accused me of cheating with my brother-in-law. So near the end, I think this is kind of, they tell you, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, but actions speak louder than words. So I kicked him out of the house last July, so it's been a year. But that February before that, I actually got HPV. I wonder why, because it turned into cancer cells, so they had to give me that procedure. And because he was cheating on me, who knows with how many women, but at least the neighbor. And he told his boss that he had to have the day off of work because his wife has cancer and she's having surgery and he needs to be with her. But instead, he couldn't take me because he had to work, but he didn't really go to work. And he went to the neighbor's house. And my brother-in-law took me to the hospital
Right.
and took me home. And so when I got home, I said, I'm home. I need help, like, because I'm wearing a diaper and I'm in bed and I'm groggy from and he came home and dropped my son off, who's, how old was he? 5, 4 or 5 last year. He was 5. He had just turned 5. And then he's like, all right, see ya. And I'm like, are you seriously leaving? He's like, I gotta go. Went back to the girlfriend's house and left me alone with a 5-year-old. and didn't come back till like midnight. And I had to like take care of a 5-year-old when I had surgery and was wearing a diaper. I was like, are you
And you let him
kidding me?
back? You let him back after he left and
That's when I was like, oh my God. And then that same day, he accused me of sleeping with my brother-in-law. Well, he helped you. I'm like, well, who else was supposed to help me? So I knew about 2 years before I left that I had to leave.
right.
And I remember thinking, I will never have peace and I will never feel good and I'll never be happy until I leave him. But it took me 2 years to leave.
It's okay, you left. What would you say to women that may be facing this be in the same situation? What would you tell them?
That they're not going to change, that you keep giving them chance after chance after, like I did. I still love him, which is weird to say, but I can't have him in my life. But like that he's not going to change, it's not going to stop until you leave. That's the only way it's going to stop.
What are some of the signs that you could share with the audience with a person that has those tendencies of abusing you?
Like beforehand, like
Yeah,
before they ever well, he was jealous.
see?
He didn't want me around any men, and he'd always be like, "Oh, you think that guy's so good looking," or "Oh yeah, look at that guy. I bet you." And I'm like, "Oh, whatever." I'm
So
like,
that
I don't
jealousy,
even.
what else?
And he started yelling at me before he ever hit me. And so if they yell at you in anger or never accept responsibility when they do something wrong or hurt you, like he would always say, that didn't bother you or that didn't hurt you or whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I'm trying to tell you how I feel. Like my feelings are not wrong. I'm just telling you how I feel and you don't care. Those are all signs.
Yes, yes. And let me ask you this, you do have a baby with him. When you were getting physically abused, did it affect your son? Was he being abusive to you and your son as well?
He wasn't purposefully abusive to my son, but my son witnessed like way more than any little boy should ever have to. And one time he was trying to hit me and I was holding him. And he pushed us into the wall and I had to like contort my body so that my son didn't hit the wall. And then he would say,
So
oh,
that is purposely doing
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
I put
Susan,
that in the court papers actually that he
that is
did that.
yes, that and I'm good because this is a crime. When someone's
Yeah.
putting their hands on you, whether you love them or not, if someone is putting their hands on you, that's a crime. That person deserves to go to jail and get pressed charges upon.
Yeah.
Not okay because if it's gonna happen to you, it's gonna happen to the next person. If it's gonna
Yeah.
happen to the children, it's gonna happen to the next children, right? So this is
Mm-hmm.
a crime.
Yeah.
This is something that you make sure that that person take responsibility for.
Yes. And
Love,
then
yes.
yeah,
Go ahead.
when my son would be upset because his mom is getting, hit and
He
beat
would
up and
witness
stuff,
it. He would
he
witness.
would witness it and he would run to mommy, mommy, and I would hold him and my husband would say like, oh, give him to me. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving him to you. He's upset. And then he would say, oh, you're just using him as a shield. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know. I don't know how any man could think that about their son, that their mother would use them as a shield. I'm like, no, I'm trying to comfort him because he's upset at the way you're acting.
Those are just words to try to keep you down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's all about. It's all about control, Susan. When
Yeah.
people are when they're have these problems like this and they are hurting other people, they're sick. It's all about control. They don't want you to have friends. They don't want you to have your family around you. They don't want you happy. They want to be in total control of you, your mind, your body, and your soul. So he's going to say anything to make you feel like, oh my God,
Yeah. And
my
I would like come home from work and be in a good mood, had a good day, and my son and I would be, playing or whatever, and he would walk in the door like a hurricane and, start just be angry. And I'd be like, why do you always have to ruin our good day? Like, oh, just constantly. Like, we can't have like one nice day. Like, he was just angry all the time.
And you
And
were
it's just,
scared all the time.
I was, yeah,
You were,
you just,
how did the marriage affect your mental health and your physical health? How did it affect you?
well, I gained 80 pounds in a short amount of time, like a year, less than a year, probably less than a year. And I know I stress eat. I learned that because I gained about, yeah, about 80 pounds. And then I developed like really terrible migraines. And then I learned that you can get migraines from concussion. And he did give me a concussion. And my migraines started shortly after that. And I was just like depressed. Like I didn't care about living. Like my son was the only thing that I cared about.
I know.
And at one point near the end, it was maybe a month or two before I finally got him out of the house, he was threatening to kill me
Yeah.
and threatening to kill himself. And I called 911 and told them he was threatening to kill himself. I didn't want to say he was threatening to kill me because I knew that he'd end up in jail and I didn't want him to go to jail. It still felt bad for him, of course. And so they came, and then of course he was fine, and I'm a mess. I'm crying. I'm like, help me. And I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, he seems fine now, so we can't take him. And then in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to tell them to take me because I want to go to the mental hospital because I can't live like this anymore. And then I thought, no, I can't do that because of my son. And then what if I got like lost custody of my son? My son ended up with him. So all these thoughts are going through my head when I'm talking to the ambulance and the police. And so they said, well, you can get a protection order if it's, if that's what you want to do. They like whispered that to me, but and I just, had it in my head. And then I guess it was a month or two later is when I finally did it, and I did get a protection order.
Good for you, Susan. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
How did you finally decide to leave him?
My son was in gymnastics camp. So I was like, my husband was at work. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have hours to just relax and decompress, and this is going to be great. And then 10 minutes later, my husband walked in the door, screaming and yelling and calling me names, accusing me of cheating with my brother-in-law. And I'm like, I don't need to listen to this. Oh, and it got worse when I started standing up for myself and saying, I don't have to listen to this, or ignoring him. And you're not affecting me anymore. Like, I don't care what you have to say. And that is when the abuse got worse, like really bad, the last 4 or 5 months that he was in the house. So I got up and I went into my room, but he had kicked the door down so many times that it doesn't shut anymore. And so he storms in there and he's in my face telling me that I'm a slut and a whore and I'm fat and I'm a whale and I'm disgusting and ugly and all this stuff, and I'm cheating and with my brother-in-law. And I was like, oh my God. And I was gonna exercise. So I had on like my exercise top and a pair of shorts. And I'm a big girl, so it's not like I don't usually flaunt myself like the little skimpy outfits, but
You're a beautiful woman.
well, thank you.
That way come off. Don't even worry. Just hang out with me on these little sweat. Listen, just stay in contact with me. You see your life change. Okay, good.
But so, yeah, and I, instead of putting on my exercise pants and stuff, I put on my flip-flops and I'm like, I'm leaving. And I ran out the door and he followed me. You can't leave. And I'm like, yes, I can. And I got in the car and locked the doors and I drove off before he could stop me, because he's flung himself in front of the car and stuff, so I couldn't leave before. And so I was driving and I just started to cry and I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I would rather die, because he threatened to kill me if I ever left. One time he said that he was gonna murder me in front of our son so that my son would know how much he hated me. And I used to say, oh, that's a great dad, because then he'd say he loved his son. I'm like, is that really love? But he only would say that because he knew that's the worst possible thing he could do to hurt me, is if he hurt my son. And since he witnessed the murder of his parents, he knows how that hurts. But he would want his own son to feel that pain just to get back at me.
I'm just happy you made it out, because Susan, there's women that's dying today in the hands of their abuser and their children.
Yeah.
This is real. So I didn't put that past him telling you this. How did you leave him?
So I was in the car crying. I didn't know what to do, but the very first or no, one of the time first he got arrested twice. They gave me a card with the case number and it had the phone number for the YWCA on it. And I put it in my phone even though I never used it. And I knew it was still in there, been in there for a couple of years. And there it was, Jenna, domestic violence, it said. And I was like, I think this must, I'm just gonna call them. And it wasn't that name, it was someone else that answered. And they said, you're not gonna want to hear. First, they told me to pull over because I was crying. And then they said, you're not gonna want to hear this, but you need to get a protection order. And I said, I'll do anything, because I realized in that moment that I could no longer live like that, that I would rather take the risk of him killing me than to have to live like one more moment in that situation. I just couldn't do it anymore. So the YMCA helped me. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for making that decision to make the rest of your life the best of your life for you and your
Yeah.
beautiful son, because you deserve it. You had to grow up with this chaos, and then you had a breaking point. Your dad and your grandma, your grandpa, they helped you out, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
end up later on in life somewhere where you can't even imagine finding yourself there, but you found yourself there. And guess
Yeah.
what? It's okay. You took you and your baby out of it to never
Mm-hmm.
look back again. So it's about that. We go through the trials and tribulations of life, but the thing is that you learn from that, and you're not going to repeat that path again. It's just
No, never.
the path, right? What is life like you for today, Susan? What is life like? What is life like for you today? How has it changed?
Well, the best part about my life now is that when I wake up in the morning, and my husband used to always like attack me in the morning. I don't know why, but when I wake up in the morning, I have peace.
Oh,
That's the best part. Like nobody's gonna attack me. No one's gonna scream at me. I don't have to worry about my son being upset, or he would try to protect me at the end too. He would yell at his dad. And that's another sign when I'm like, I have to get away from this man. Now I see it's damaging my son. So we have peace, we have comfort, we have stability, like we don't have to worry. And even though I lost his income from his job, I actually have more money now than I did before because he's not spending it all. He
hello.
would blow all his money and then blow mine. And if I didn't give it to him, he would throw a fit like a 2-year-old and take my money, or I would just give in because I knew if I didn't, he'd beat me up. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this today. So I would give in. So he would spend like, I don't know how much, all my money. And I got into severe debt. My credit score like plummeted. And now my credit score is like 760, and I'm paying off my debt. I've paid off like $10,000 of debt already. And I still have more money than I did before, even though I'm making these huge credit card payments. And I've lost 40 pounds.
Woohoo!
And yeah, my migraines are better. I still have them because I'm not sure what causes them, but
The
it could have been
stress,
the concussion and the
anxiety of it,
stress.
the
Yeah.
beatings.
I used to get 2 migraines a week, and
Yeah.
now I get like 1 a week or less than. Sometimes I'll go a couple weeks without one. And so my health is just improved. I'm not like depressed. I don't wish I would die anymore. And when I look at my son, like now I'm like, okay, I still live for him because he's the best thing ever. But now I have other reasons to live too. It's not, my son is not the only thing keeping me alive anymore.
No, you have goals and dreams and ambitions and things to do because you
Yes,
make a difference. And by you sharing your story, you're making a difference in
I
someone's
hope
life.
so.
Yes, you are, Susan. Never doubt that. Because it takes strength and courage to tell a story, to share your story with people that you had to endure. Eh, you had to go through that in the darkness. You had to go through those dark days and being scared. But now you're able
Mhm.
to reach back and help others by sharing
I
your.
hope so. That
You are. You're doing it.
I I just wish, like, I know everyone has to do things in their own time, but I just wish someone could hear this and be like, hey, if she can leave, I can leave too. Like I can do this.
Say it.
And it
Tell the
and it
audience.
is,
Tell
yeah, it's the hardest, scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And I like doing hard things. I like doing scary things. Like, I lived in South America and, and I went to college and got a master's degree and I do hard things, but none of that compares to how hard it was to just call the YWCA and like, help me. Like, I don't know what to do. I need help. Because I was afraid, because he did say that he would kill me if I ever left. And I didn't know if he meant it or not. And I was scared, but I knew I couldn't live like that for like one more day. I just couldn't. And so I was like, I would rather die than have to live with like that for like one more moment. And I figured, well, if I call the YWCA, they'll help protect me. And so I just did it. I just left and it was terrifying, but it's the best thing I've ever done.
the best thing. And so Susan's message to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you find yourself identifying with her story today and you find yourself in this situation, to reach out for help. Today, we're wrapping it up right now. We thank Susan so much for being on this podcast, because today she's made a difference in your life. And so, with that being said, I'm going to give you the domestic violence hotline number. It's 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Please make that call. It is a scary decision to have to make, but it's the most important decision to make, so that it could save you and your loved one's life, okay? Every day, by the hands of a woman, man, a child's either getting killed, murdered today because of child abuse, and we're their voices. And a lot of times a lot of people put their children in bad situations. So it's your responsibility to get you and your family to a safe place. Please call 1-800-799-SAFE. And I want to leave you with a poem by Douglas Maylock. It's called It's Fine Today. Sure, this world is full of trouble. I ain't said it ain't. Lord knows I've had enough and double reason for complaint. Rain and storm have come to fret me. Skies are often gray. Thorns and brambles have come to beset me on the road. But say, ain't it fine today? What's the use in always weeping, making trouble last? What's the use in always keeping thinking of the past? Each must have his tribulations, water with his wine. Life, it ain't no celebration. Trouble, I've had mine. But today is fine. It's today that I'm living, not a month ago, having, losing, taking, giving. As time wills it so. Yesterday, a cloud of sorrow fell across the way. It may rain again tomorrow. It may rain, but say, ain't it fine today? Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Susan, for showing up and sharing your story with all of us. Because of you, you will make a difference in someone's life. So don't you ever forget it. Enjoy the
Thank
rest
you.
of your life and make today the best of your life.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and letting me share my story.
You are welcome. And thank you so much for showing up today. You have greatness within you. You are very special.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Enjoy.